So the Premier League season's finished. We now know who's in the top 4 and who's not. And yes, that means Arsenal Football Club will be contesting for the Europa League next season. Tries to hide his glee. Now, we'll come on to that, obviously, in due course. But the question's kind of raised, James, is that has this been an horrendous season for Arsenal, or does a little bit of context need to be applied to it? Because, I mean, look, you've got to look at, we're all aware of the kickoffs, we're all aware of the Wenger out stuff, we're ultimately aware of where they finished in the league table. Is it as cut and dry as all that?
Well, obviously, I think we've spoken about enough on Social Club in the last 6 months or whatever, that the environment's not been a good one. And Wenger himself said it was an absolutely horrendous environment that they've had to deal with. And he also said that he was part of that, with the fact that kind of coy, like, oh, I might be here, might not be here next season thing. But they've got this...
I might have been part of that. So, Arsene, could you clear that up by telling us what you're going to be doing in your future?
No, that's not... He always goes, well, that's not important right now. Let's talk about something else. But I think with all of that going on, they've got 75 points, which is more than they got last year, I think. And it's the record high for a team finishing 5th. And with all of the top 6 sort of having new managers and stepping it up a level, I think you're right. I think there does need to be a bit of context there. And with that environment as well. For those players to get 75 points when they've been scrutinised as much as they have, it's been the season where we've been talking about Arsenal all season. So I think they actually deserve a little bit of credit for that.
But doesn't that make what Paul's saying more concrete though? Because we've been saying, and the media's been saying for a long time, Arsenal's going to be left behind. Arsenal's going to be left behind, and they well and truly have been left behind. Yes, they've got more points, but they've been left behind by Tottenham and Liverpool because they've just not improved quick enough. They've not put the money in. They've not put the investment in.
They were 45 minutes from not being left behind.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is that's they finished 5th now in the Europa League.
The point is that Arsenal for the last 2 seasons, definitely at the start of the season, I think a lot of us sat around here or down south, whatever, and said Arsenal should probably put in a really solid title challenge this year. And I think for me, Per, anyway, I think that's the thing. I think that's where the disappointment more than anything else, and the underwhelming thing with Arsenal should come. Yeah, on any other season, 75 points is more than enough to qualify for the Champions League. But it's like the Liverpool thing. We're the only team that is top at Christmas that hasn't won gone on to win the league. Every time Liverpool have finished 2nd, the points tally 9 times out of 10 would have won. It doesn't matter, does it? You know, Arsenal should have been. They shouldn't have been in a fight for 4th. They should have been in a fight.
It's all right saying 75 points should have got the Champions League, but that 75 points is never going to win you the league. And ultimately, if that's their goal, then what's?
But did anyone really think they were going to? In our predictions, we had them 6th, which I didn't want them 6th, but I didn't see them truly challenging. They didn't have that striker. They didn't get
Christmas though. They were not Christmas. Sorry, early parts of December. They were looking really good and really strong. And then they
play.
But I remember nearly 18 months ago when we did a January transfer window, and on the last day, and the league was wide open. And I remember on that day, and we were sitting in Robbie's here, and we were talking about have Arsenal had a bad day, and I was like, yes. Why didn't you go out there and spend the money on a top-class striker and get the league won? They could have done it at that point, and that was 18 months ago. They didn't go in the summer. To me, it's the manager and the owner. I've said this for ages. The manager, because he's so stubborn and he thinks you can win the league by some flawed system that'll never work again, I don't think. And obviously the owner, because he's a dick and he just clearly wants to just make money out. Use that as a start. Because clearly he just wants to make money from the club and actually doesn't really care. He'll be gutted that they're not in the Champions League because of the cash cow. Yeah. And that's probably, there'll be a reaction to that because they're not in the Champions League. But ultimately, they are a club geared up to be in the Champions League, not to win the league. So if that's enough for the Arsenal fans, then they'll be disappointed that they're not there. But surely the goal should be to hit 85 points and be challenging for the league.
Of course, that's the dream. But a horrendous, awful, oh my God, this is the worst season ever, is finishing 10th. Which Chelsea did last year, and they came back and have done brilliantly, whatever. But I think part of it is the fact of teams are so desperate, one, to get in the Champions League, two not to be in the Europa League. That it just feels 10 times worse for Arsenal fans. And of course, they haven't been truly challenging for long enough.
Here's the thing, though, you're right, but because it's fine margins, ultimately the difference is, as you say, it's 45 minutes or whatever. It's a Liverpool doing what we've done in recent weeks and struggling to score goals from them being in the Champions League qualifying round and what have you. But it won't be you. Arsenal fans that who think it's not horrendous will need the context of, let's ask again in December when you've gone through that group stage of the Europa League and how it impacts you. Because the Champions League impacts Liverpool and Chelsea really stole the march at the start of this season when they didn't have those European games to go to, and ended up, that's why we ended up around first and second in the league. When you do, you're having that has European football has a negative impact on your next season's league campaign. But there's a difference when you've just gone and played, a top level team in a really exciting game of football, when you've just done it and you've just dogged it out against a bunch of like part-timers from Eastern Europe who want to kill you. That's but no, that's what the Europa League is. I'm joking, obviously. that is by and large what the start of the Europa League's like. When Arsenal find themselves in December and they'll be looking at like, why are we 7th in the Premier League? Because they've not picked up enough points or whatever, and they're really struggling. That's when I think you'll realise how far off it is. And I disagreed about where they were, and maybe it was just me. I thought Arsenal should have, when they signed Petr Cech, I thought he was enough to be the missing piece. They needed to sort of goalkeeper thing out. We realised they needed to address a couple more issues. This summer, they went out and they bought a centre half, which they knew they needed. They had Xhaka as well, who was meant to provide a bit more steel in the midfield. Okay, Lucas Perez didn't quite work out, but he was like the backup solution to Jamie Vardy, a guy with pace who can come and change a game in a different way. They made Giroud plan B, which works fantastically well, by the way. The amount of points that Arsenal pulled out the bag this season from late on in games, but him changing it. And they still got Alexis Sanchez, who's world class. Ozil, still world class. That team is or should have been more than capable of challenging for the Premier League title. I don't necessarily mean to the last day of the season or whatever, but they should have made a better fist of it than scrapping out for 4th, 5th or 6th in the league.
I think what's interesting to take of this is sometimes you need a bit of bad to like really kick yourself up the arse. Like Newcastle, for example, Villa, for example, getting relegated from the Premier League. They've been taking their position basically in the league for granted for too long. Maybe it's the same with Arsenal. Maybe they need this kind of season, and players that are prima donnas like Ozil and Koscielny need this kind of season and a kick up the arse to really kind of.
It's dangerous thinking.
Yeah,
that, though,
it's dangerous thinking.
Look, for every Newcastle there's a Villa.
Yeah,
you'll have seen it. You go down. I think a lot of Arsenal fans going, well, maybe we need to have a break from it. It's not a break from it. You go into a competition that's very, very similar, except that the teams don't want to play nice footy with you. So they want to come and murder your face because it's the biggest game they've ever played in their lives. It's Arsenal been in the Champions League for 21 years or whatever, back to back. All these teams that are going to be coming against them in the Europa League next season are going to be rubbing their hands together and we're going to boot 7 shades of shit out of these and get in the faces.
I can understand the disappointment of it. But I think the fact is that I think the top 7 are stronger than they've ever been. And so there's going to be teams that aren't going to do as well as the other teams. That's just a fact. Yeah. So they've got more points than they had last year, and they could still win a cup. And they've gone out in the Champions League. I know they got absolutely battered, but they've gone out to a massive, brilliant team in Bayern Munich. I think sometimes I feel like this season been the season where people have kind of lost perspective on things, and I just think don't go too far with it. There are those top lines are they've got more points than last season, and someone has to finish 5th and 6th.
The table
and do you know what? Last year,
the table doesn't lie.
They still finished in this nightmare season that they've had. They've still done better than you guys did last season, better than Man United did this season, better than Chelsea did last season. So.
I think you're right to some extent, but I think there's perspectives are relative, aren't they? From a perspective of someone who watches Championship football every season with the greatest respect, you must be thinking, who the fuck, what's horrendous? I'll show you horrendous. You know what I mean? But I think from an Arsenal perspective, where it is, top 4 has become it's become such a thing. It's become a cliche, hasn't it? It's become a bit of a joke about the whole thing. Well, no one's going to be laughing. No one's laughing now, are they? Apart from me. But that's the bar. That's the thing they set for. I agree. It's 20 teams enter the competition at the start of the season. Someone's got to finish in every single place in the league. it is just that thing though for Arsenal is that they're entering it's a wilderness you enter when you've dropped out of that's a top four. Liverpool have qualified for the Champions League twice in like 8 years or something. We were there every year, you know, we were from 2001 or whatever, once we qualified, we were there, 2 European Cup finals, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to get yourself back into that. It's not, there's a world difference between dropping out of, you're almost better finishing fucking.
And don't get me wrong, like, I know there needs to be change at Arsenal. Things need to change. They need to sort out what's going on with Usmanov. Need to sort out Wenger. I've said for a while, I think it probably is time. It does need to go, but I think it probably feels more severe this year because you're seeing the calibre of
proof's
top
there,
teams
isn't
now.
it? The proof that was there that they need to change because all the other teams have changed their manager. And whatever you think of, you know, Man United's season, they're in the Europa League final. If they win it, they're in the Champions League, and they've won a fucking trophy.
Yeah.
Let's
be honest, you'd rather get into the Champions League by winning the Europa League
I
than
would
finishing
much rather.
all day long.
You know, the top four have all refreshed. It's worked to some success, different places. Obviously, Klopp in the second year. City is still a little bit short, but I think you can see what they need.
Yeah.
Chelsea, it's worked massively. So, you know, I think Arsenal need to have a good look at themselves now.
Yeah.
I get James's point. He's absolutely right that sometimes it does take it. You don't want to have a shit season, but when you have a shit season, then everyone actually goes,
Fucking hell.
oh, actually, the status quo here is not great. Yeah. We need to change something. So, yeah, they're gonna be in the Europa League next season, and they're gonna get to go to some fun places.
I think what's interesting. I think what's interesting to look at the summer as well is Wenger seems to be the battering ram for a lot of this, and maybe rightly so. But a lot of this for me has to go with the boardroom as well, because they don't take any flack.
No,
they just take.
They don't do anything.
They just keep the money in a nice safe, and Wenger takes the stick. And it'll be interesting to see what happens behind the scenes, and we can see how much money he really gets and what happens there, because I think that'll speak volumes.
I think just sort of last thing, I think what it boils down to is if Arsenal fans are feeling disgruntled about the managerial situation and the running the club, when they're upset that they're not finishing any higher than third or just about scraping second or whatever in the league, then dropping out of the Champions League, that's got to be seen as that's where the level is, and falling below that, it's ruthless. And I don't agree. I like stability. I like to see managers given plenty of opportunity. I don't think anyone will ever accuse Arsenal of not giving Arsene Wenger sufficient opportunity to do what he wants to do at that football club. And what it boils down to is whether they win the FA Cup or not. I mean, I'd still go back to it with Liverpool, and it's taken us a while again. We're nowhere near, still not out of the wilderness. Let's talk again in 2 years' time, I guess, about this, but Liverpool finished 7th or 8th in the league. We won the League Cup, and we got beaten in the FA Cup final. And we had Kenny Dalglish in charge, living legend of the football club, and we sacked him because you've got to have higher lofty ambitions for what you want to achieve. And so it's very, very, very interesting. And I think I would agree it is. I think it has been for Arsenal. It has been an horrendous season for most football clubs on the planet. Pretty good, pretty aspirational, to be fair, but yeah. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below then. What do you think? Has it been a horrendous season for Arsenal? Or, as you say, provide the context to it, 75 points, good enough to get them top four in the vast majority of seasons. Is that just because the league has shifted, and does that therefore mean less blame for the manager, etc., etc.? Subscribe to Ball Street. What's the rest of Social Club? We're going to be discussing Europa League or bust for Jose Mourinho. You can watch that on the channel, but please do go and watch this first, or take time out of your day to watch it. Millwall, Bradford, the League One playoff final. We joke sometimes about like the Championship and divisions below, but my God, if you're a football fan, if you're a genuine football fan and you can't relate to the stuff that you're watching in that video, you're basically dead inside.